Hi, I'm Gary Allen. Welcome to a new project. Today, no landscaping store. We've got planned for you a fully automatic irrigation system on the designer's landscape. With a sprinkler system design, which we're not going to paper, we're going to show you out on the field how we'll plan things. And we've already come out and given an estimate to the homeowner how many spray heads, about 30, and about 30 of the rotors. We want to make sure that we zone and pipe our spray heads separate from our rotors because of their distribution of water and the precipitation rate that'll be challenged throughout the property. High and dry sand here. I mean, really, the sprinkler system is going to play a vital role, and that's why they're so important for the plants, sod, and trees that we install here. Now, you can get out the ruler, but I want to flag out this rotor zone and see exactly how many heads it's going to take me to cover this corner lot. And I'll begin right here on the corner with what we'll call a rotor. And because of the lime rock, it's even hard to put the head in, but we know we want one in this corner. In other words, spraying down to the driveway and down here. We're on city water, which means it's metered, and we can get about 33 to 36 feet of spray with these big heads. For me, that's 12 steps. So I'll mark off 12 steps to go to my next head. "12 puts me right here in this corner. That's perfect. What we want in head-to-head coverage is that one head in its spray actually meets or overlaps right to the next head. Now with this corner lot, it curves around. I'm going to flag out from the street, throwing back. Let's see how many heads it takes us, and then we'll fill in the center area and see how many overall heads we need for our rotor zones, and then we'll divide it by however many heads we have per zone to find out how many zones we get. So here we go. And that brings me to my third head altogether. I'm continuing at a 12-foot pacer. 10, 11, 12. Okay. We'll now continue around the curve with this 36-foot spacing. Well, one here to pick up. So we end up with 16 rotor heads to cover this front corner of the property. What does that mean for us? Well, we've already determined with our water source that we'll maximize 6 heads per zone. So we'll place 5 heads on one zone, 5 on another, and then 6 on our last. Now, we've got all these heads in one color, the orange color. Now we need to do some division. Basically, how are the zones going to be broken up? Do we travel along the road with one zone, or break them up into different quadrants or sections of the yard? And I think we'll do that. In other words, having a zone of 6 heads there, 5 here, and another 5 close to you. So there you have some basics on head spacing or placement. Things can get a little more complicated though. What do you say we go catch up with our installer? We want to talk with John of Bold City Irrigation. John, thanks for helping us out today.
No problem.
You install a lot of irrigation systems.
We sure do.
What are some precautions that we need to really be aware of?
First and foremost, always call your locates, your utility locates.
Okay.
Cable, phone, power, gas, etc. Save yourself a lot of hassle, a lot of time.
Now, I understand too that even if you call and they mark these cables, that if you happen to cut them, there's no charge.
Exactly. Save yourself a lot of liability because you leave the heavy on them to tell you where the locates,
Very good.
where the lines are.
Okay, so that sounds like a good place to start. What other precautions? What do we need to know?
Every county, every state is different. You want to call your local government, make sure that they don't require permitting. Some places even don't allow a homeowner to do their own irrigation. You might need a licensed contractor.
I see.
Make sure there's not a rain sensor required on the system. A lot of things besides just going to the hardware store, getting your parts and putting your system in. You got to do a lot of checking
Okay.
before you buy the first product.
Okay, now I know for the county we're in here has a backflow requirement, so
Sure do.
a backflow preventer has to go on the system.
Right, and they will inspect when you're done. You have to call the inspection in, and they want insulation on the backflow.
Okay. Now also a rain sensor is required here.
Rain sensor is required.
Tell us about, I mean, we say rain sensor, but what does it do?
All it is a simple device that you install on the eaves of your house, and it cuts your system off in the event of enough rainfall. And when it detects that it's dry enough, it allows your system to come back on.
Okay.
It's not just a law, but it's just a practical water conservation.
Well, and water is such a critical issue now. Many times we're driving in the neighborhood, it's raining, and irrigation systems are on,
Right.
even for shopping centers and malls. So this one little $50 device can save a lot of water.
A lot of money, yes.
Good, good. So what about restrictions for working in the right-of-way?
Yes, and in many cities and counties, they don't even allow you to put heads in the right-of-ways, and if they do, a lot of them require permits, a second permit for the heads in the right-of-way. So you need to check on all this before you do.
Yeah, before you dig.
Before you dig.
Okay, good. Now, I flagged a few heads. You've got different colors for different zones, I guess.
Yeah.
That'll make the system pretty.
It makes it
pretty
easier
simple.
for my guys. They know where the zone starts, where the zone stops. It's just make our job a little bit easier.
You bet. All right, I'm gonna let you get to the flagging the rest of those. We'll catch up with John again a little later, and I'm gonna go talk about trenching.
Great.
Really, when you think about it, trenching is the hardest part and the most laborative part of the whole procedure. So this really makes trenching easy. Now, you can get a machine like this at many of the rental stores, and if you're a contractor, you probably know all about it. Looking up close, we can see how the work is done. This radial saw, basically, a ground saw is what it is, made out of steel and has these carbide tipped teeth on it that do the cutting. This will really help you cut through tree stumps and roots that can get in the way. But the other thing about it, with an 8 horsepower engine driving this thing at 600 RPMs, well, safety glasses are recommended because it does a lot of work. Rather than one belt drive, we've got a dual belt drive system here. And the belt acts as the clutch. In other words, the 8 horsepower engine turning the blade at 600 RPM, if it hits something heavy or big in the ground, then the belt slips, so the blade stops. In other words, protecting you and protecting the life of the blade. So, after the engine is started, this mechanism engages the blade, and that gets the wheel turning. Then I adjust or roll this handle to the desired depth that I want to trench. This machine will cut a depth to a depth of 13 inches or less, depending on how deep you want to get. So what do you say we crank this guy up and put him to work? John, I guess when it comes to heads, we've got a variety of choices, huh?
Got a head for every situation out here, Gary. If you remember the turf zones you flagged earlier, this is your pop-up gear-driven turf head. Pops up 4 full inches. Right now it's missing the nozzle out of it, which we'll put in after we flush all the dirt and debris out of the zones.
The nozzles come in different sizes, I guess.
They sure do. For the rotor heads, it all depends on the situation. Of course, you need to read up on it, and the book comes with the heads. The quarter patterns, half patterns, full circles all need different size nozzles. So you need to do your homework a little bit and figure out what size nozzle you need.
Larger the nozzle hole, and naturally the more water you're going to put out of even the same head.
Exactly, it's the very same head.
So what you're saying is whether that head gets adjusted to a full circle or a quarter circle would determine how much water you want to push out of it.
Exactly.
So that you get a uniform
Even
precipitation rate.
Yes.
Okay.
This for the turf, like I say, pops up 4 full inches. For the spray zones, whole different story. We got all kind of goodies here. For the plants, you stand up risers, be on rigid pipe.
Yeah.
We got this one painted black. It's a good neutral color. It hides well behind plants. Got the nozzle already in it on top.
This is stationary. In other words, you set a predetermined height and that's it. Of course, you can come back and adjust it.
You can come back
as your
once a
landscape.
year, right? Either cut your shrubs down or raise the head up.
Sure.
You have your 4-inch pop-up head. You usually put in just the turf areas. It pops up a full 4 inches.
Okay.
For the shrubs, you have the 12-inch pop-ups.
Oh, those are nice.
You can either put them in from the bottom, put them in from the side. Like I got.
Notice you got flex pipe.
Every head except for the risers, I put flex pipes. That way, when it's in the ground, it can literally give and not break.
Even the big heads too. It saves them if they're out on the street.
Right. It might not save them every time, but it's sure going to minimize any damage you might have.
Well, good. Now, what I've come to appreciate too is, I mean, these heads are generic in patterning.
Yes.
The nozzle that you put on determines the spray pattern and the gallonage, whether it's a half, quarter,
You
full,
need to determine what you're watering, how wide the area is, how much you need for the water to throw, and you have to fix your nozzles accordingly. And at that point, you determine what size pipe you're going to use and whatnot, and how much water is going to go out the ends of these nozzles. This one's already got one in it. These are nozzle-less right now.
I can't wait to see this, man. It's coming along.
It sure is.
John, maybe we can spend a moment talking about pipe and pipe size and gallonage.
Okay.
What are we using today?
Well, in this particular yard, we use, because of our water restriction that we've got here, we're using about 18 to 20 gallons a minute, so we decided to use 1-inch mainline. So our biggest pipe in the yard is 1 inch. We're using 3/4 and 1/2 inch, 3 sizes.
Okay, so how do we know
Good question.
when to go from 1/2 inch to 3/4 to 1 inch pipe?
Okay. This is where a little bit of mathematics is going to come in. What you're going to have to figure your gallons. Once you decided where your zones are going to be, you have to know how many gallons each head is going to use. And of course, you want to know how many total they're going to use per zone, 18 to 20 max. Once you've decided all that, you want to start backwards at the very last head. You want to go up to 5 gallons a minute on a 1/2 inch piece of pipe.
5 gallons a minute on a 1/2 inch.
That may be
piece of
one
pipe.
head, maybe 5 heads. You've got to do the math on
Don't
how many.
count the heads, count the
gallons.
gallonage that head discharges.
Use your chart that comes with the heads that you buy and count your gallons backwards.
Okay,
So
5 gallons for half. Now, when do I know to go up to a larger?
at your 5 gallon point, go ahead and use 3/4 inch pipe. And use another 5 gallons, so all the way up to the 10 gallon. Once you're at the 10 gallon point, 10, 11 gallons you can go, plus or minus just a gallon or two there. Then you're going to bump it up to the 1 inch. Of course, all your laterals are 1/2 inch size going to the heads.
Okay.
Those are all 1/2 inch. And the 1 inch, you can go ahead and finish it up all the way to the end of your zone, but don't exceed your rating of what flow is going through your meter, which in this case is about 18 gallons a minute.
But again, I hear it as a general rule, 5 gallons for 1/2 inch, 10 or 11 for 3/4, and about 18 inch.
Up to about 18.
gallons.
And keep in mind, here we're using thin wall pipe, which can more water can flow through thin wall pipe than thick wall pipe. You use thick wall pipe, which they tend to do more up north. It's usually about a gallon to 2 gallons less per size.
See, because the outside diameter is the same
Stays
for
the
the
same.
fittings, so the pipe is smaller inside
And carries
and the same
less
outside.
water.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right, well, that's a good point.
Yes.
Now, you've selected these valves, these particular valves.
Very good valve.
What do you like about it, contractor-wise?
The feature I like best about this valve, Gary, is the flow control on the top. What that enables you to do, say you get out on a Sunday afternoon, you have a problem with your system, it won't shut down, you can always shut the valve down at the flow control, rest of your system works fine until you can fix the valve.
Okay, so you can isolate it, turn it off completely, instead of having it stuck, maybe.
Right, and that way you don't disable your whole system.
Yeah, that sounds good. What do you say we go talk about the valves and how they're even put in?
Gary, this is the way we like to install our electric valves. We like to put them in a manifold system with, here's our water source coming in from the back. We literally manifold them, kind of reminds you of the manifold on an automobile engine.
Exactly.
Keeps the valves close, keeps them nice and tight, easy to work on. The guys are digging our valve pit now. We'll be setting them inside the ground.
John, I could see where, after a period of time, if you isolated your valves all over a property...
Have a mess on your hands. You'd have valve boxes that were just begging to be run over all over your yard. We kind of hide these in the bushes somewhere. We mark it on a site plan where they're at, always for future reference. We keep them away from any vehicular traffic that might run them over.
On this design we have, you'll have 2 little manifold systems like this?
I'll have 2, one for the front yard, one for the back.
Okay,
Correct.
then that also has a way of simplifying your wiring scheme.
Exactly. You know where all the wires are run. You're keeping them all together. They're all joined, which is a whole other story. All joined together with the ground, and they're all close crop, close knit.
Let's go back to simplicity. What is a valve?
Gary, think of it simply as gate valve in your yard, electrified.
Okay.
You've just got a valve that is controlled by a low voltage that puts juice to the solenoid that opens and closes your valve.
I have people tell me sometimes, oh, but I like to open the valves by myself or manually.
And you can. These valves can be used both electrically and manually with a simple turn of the solenoid.
Okay.
If for whatever reason you choose to open them that way, they're there for the turn.
But my thought always on that is still, if you like it manually, then you're going to love it automatically.
Exactly.
Instead of you keeping time of 10 minutes, I got to go turn 1 off and turn 2 on. The time clock does that for you.
That's right.
And when you think of the investment for the guts of the system, and then the electric part is not that much of a greater cost.
No, it's not.
Yet it saves you the most time, energy, which is still money, and lets you water your yard whether you're on vacation or
That's
2
right.
in the morning or what have you.
And your precipitation is even, and your watering is even, and most importantly, you don't waste water.
Makes a lot of sense. I can't wait to get this installed and really get some of the headset where we can show the results of our hard
bet.
work. That'll be great. John, you got all the valves in one valve box. Excellent.
Yeah, for simplicity, kept them all together, manifolded them all in one box, easy to find. We've got them all in a bed area where we don't have to worry about traffic running them over. Easy access to them if we ever have to work on them.
Yeah, that is great.
Yes.
What about the wiring?
Very simple. We ran on this, the clock is so close to these valves that we ran multi-strand wire to the valves.
Now, but let's just talk about that. What do you mean by multi-strand?
There are 7 18-gauge wires in this one strand
Okay.
of wires, and one wire goes to each of the valves, and then all the valves are connected with one common wire also.
The good old-fashioned way was running, like you have 5 valves here, 5 plus a common all the way to the time clock, and you had room for error.
Yes. Yes.
So simplifying it, you run all of it in here, and then when you get to the clock, you take the colors that you've linked up and,
exactly.
and make the connection. Look, what are these?
Okay, this is very important. These are watertight connectors. You just go putting a wire nut on these wires, you're inviting corrosion. You might wake up, your sprinklers aren't going to work. In here, they're in a gel, and more than likely, you'll never have a problem with these. It's very important to use watertight connectors.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That is a good point. And really, this is where the low voltage electricity goes through and kind of hits that plunger.
Yes.
It makes it either recess or open up. Huh?
Right, but they are made to be run manually, so you're not going to hurt them a bit by turning them on or off manually. Using the flow control, you're not going to hurt a thing. So everything is made to code. It's UL listed. It's the right stuff, but still use caution and know that you can do your own wiring.
Yeah, I guess the point is at the time clock, usually the transformer is a part of the automatic time clock system.
Yes.
That drops it to low voltage to here.
It sure does.
There's no high power coming to
No
these
high
valves.
power whatsoever. No, it's all 24 volts.
And that is good to know. I mean, even if a valve was turned on, you're really not going to hurt yourself.
No, but
You'll feel a little buzz.
you'll feel a little bit.
You ever done that?
I've done it.
Yeah, it happens, I
Yeah,
guess.
you do it at least once, and then usually you don't repeat it.
I do like the way that you've isolated things. Now, also in the planning phase or stage, these are all together, but you wanted these somewhat close to the time clock area too. You kind of split the difference. I
Yeah,
guess.
we try the run of wire. The shorter run you have, it's just easier, less trouble you have in the future. I mean, you're not going to hurt a thing to run this another 300 feet.
Yeah.
But the closer you are to the controller, the less wire you run, just the less chance you're going to have problems in the future. Just as a note, all the wire that we have running the controller is underneath our main line. It's buried underneath our pipe. So if somebody was to dig in your yard, you're going to hit your pipe before you break the wire. They're usually going to stop, look what they're doing, and notice the wire underneath the pipe.
It's
Very
harder.
important.
It's harder to trace a wire break than it would be.
Yes.
Especially in a main line, it bubbles up. You know exactly where.
That's right, and you'll find the break, no problem.
Well, good. With us automatic system, I mean, how long have you been doing this?
Over 20 years, 22 years.
I'd say, I guess about 18, 19 for me, and the system seems to last that long and do that well.
Sure, and every year they're making them better and better, and for the homeowner, good for them. It's less, the parts are getting cheaper and cheaper, and the quality is getting better and better.
That is good to know.
Yes.
I guess we should also mention that most of the parts we use here today were contractor grade, so you really wouldn't find those at the garden center.
Right, you'd probably find them at a distributor versus a garden. Some garden centers do carry this
a wholesale
grade.
irrigation distributor.
Exactly. These are commercial grade products. They tend to last a little bit longer, and more importantly, they have a better warranty with them too. So that's
from the
important.
factory.
Yes, from the factory.
Oh, good stuff to know.
Yes.
Yeah. I like the way you did that. Valve box just fits right on there. Huh?
Fits right over there.
Good to go.
And good to go.
You got her nice and up to grade.
Yeah.
Super.
All right.
We just turned our first zone on, and so we really got to adjust these and make sure they're off the street and what have you. Pretty simple arrangement of things. I removed the set screw and the top, and depending on the way you have this little pin, it's full circle on one side, which it'll rotate again 360, and then this half circle marker, when you turn it over, will dictate your spray pattern, whether you get a quarter circle, a half circle, or anywhere in between. So I set that in and then configure my left side, and I'm just doing a guesstimate here, and a right side that'll go down the street. We can come back and fine tune that. Cap goes back on, and the set screw. So let me grab this other one that's on the street. Now I don't really mind doing this adjustment in the warm season. It's when it gets kind of cold and cool that I don't care for this part of the game, but he looks good so far. I'll come back with him. Our first quadrant though, basically 2 heads up here, 1, 2, 3 at the street. What do you say we fire up the next zone and adjust them across the center of the yard and down the other street? Okay, red zone down, yellow zone up. See, you never know which way they're pointing, but full circle. We've got him adjusted, full circle here, and this other one. So really, we've got like triple overlap. Good coverage here. And the dry sandy soil, that's exactly what's needed. Also, we can tone down that with the set screw or adjustment screw there. That helps diffuse that pattern so that it'll get a little closer to home if need be. Well, good. What do you say? The zone out on the street next. All right. You hear that, the air blowing out of there. It's actually just clearing itself, blowing the extra unwanted air out to fill with water. Ooh, he's on a full circle, so I need to make him a part circle. And then head to the front. Ah, there we go. I'm going to fine tune this head here a little bit, because that's what it takes basically. Walking down the line, making adjustments. And notice again, a half circle configuration. We have quarters in the corner, what we call a side strip, which actually does a narrow 4 by 30, 15 feet on each side. Now here's the thing, a spray zone like this should stay on 10 to 12 to 15 minutes per zone, while your rotors 30 to 40 minutes to an hour, depending on the time of year and the drought that you might be in, whatever's needed. But you see the puddling up. This throws a lot of water in a short period of time and kind of floods out pretty quick. Looks good. John's putting the final touches on our system. John, what you got there?
Well, Gary, this is what I consider the most important part of our irrigation system. This is the rain sensor device. This is what's going to cut your system off in the event of adequate rainfall.
So we're saving water here.
We're saving a lot of water. It's available. If you want to do it yourself, go to any home improvement store. You don't want to do it yourself, just call a contractor. It shouldn't cost much at all. Pay for itself in 1 season or less.
That's great, yeah. Most importantly though, we're saving water.
Exactly, and it is mandated, particularly in this area, this whole state it is, in most areas it is, and even if it's not, do your part for water conservation. Don't run your water when it's raining, and have a rain sensor device.
You're right, John. Very good. Thanks for all your hard work
Anytime,
today.
Gary.
You guys have done a great job.
Thanks.
We appreciate it.
All right.
What do you say we take a moment and reflect now on all the hard work it's taken for us to install this automatic irrigation system? So join us on the very next Designer's Landscape. I'll see you.